I think we have enough people to
Yes,
get
yes, I'm
started.
also sitting.
Okay.
Are you ready to start?
Yeah, I think we'll start then. Acha.
Okay. Let's pray. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive our debts and sins as we forgive our debtors. Lead us not to temptation. Deliver us from the evil one. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Hail Mary, full of grace, our Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among the women. Blessed is the fruit of thy womb. Our Lord Jesus Christ, O Virgin Saint Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at all the times, at the hour of our death. Amen. Okay, Ruben, you proceed with our resource persons. I wish you all the best to all the children. God bless you all.
Thank you, Acha, and thank you for joining us in the midst of your house visits.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Acha.
Bye.
Thank you, Acha. Bye.
Please allow to leave me.
Oh, good. Thank you, Acha.
Thank you.
Thank you everyone for coming today. We really do appreciate all of you coming, and there's a lot of you here. There's currently 53 people on this call, and that is more than I expected would join. Just before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge that I'm joining this meeting from the lands of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. I also acknowledge the traditional custodians of the various lands which you join us from today. I pay my respects to the elders past, present, and emerging, and celebrate the diversity of Aboriginal people and their ongoing cultures and connections to the land and waters around Australia. Thank you everyone for joining. I really am excited for this. This was a suggestion that someone made last year to have a VCE Information Night because we have so many great resource persons, so many great teachers, experienced teachers in our church community, and we can really use all of them as resource persons. A little later today, I will be putting a poll out. I forgot to do that, but I'll be putting a poll out just asking what year levels everyone's in. But yeah, so that we have an idea of who's joined today. Just some quick housekeeping things. This is being recorded, so FYI. As I said, if you don't want to be on the recording, you can turn off your cameras. Otherwise, you will be in the recording. And please keep your microphones on mute and your cameras on if you can and if you want to. Please direct questions in the Zoom chat. Under that, Auntie will be answering your Zoom questions, and any of the non-speakers will be answering the questions in the Zoom chat, and we will have question and answer session at the end. We've got a lot to talk about today, so it would be best to avoid questions to the speakers directly while we're running through. And so the advice that obviously we're giving today, if it is inconsistent with anything your school or VCAR or VTAC or any other authority has said, please take that advice as superior. Obviously, we try our best to make the information as correct as possible, but if you're getting other advice from elsewhere, take that advice. Just to introduce our speakers. So we've got four amazing teachers coming across from all over Victoria from our church community. So first off, we have Roy Uncle. So Roy Uncle's been teaching since 2004. He's currently teaching at Hillsfield High School. He's currently a VC chemistry teacher, but he used to also teach VC physics. He was the VC coordinator for 3 years until 2019, and he's been the year level coordinator for between 8 to 12 as well. Currently, he's part of daily organization, and he's taught in South Africa for 15 years, teaching physical science, which basically incorporates physics and chemistry. We've got Vijay Picha here, my godfather. So he finished school here. So he has been in your shoes, although a long time ago. So he finished VCE in the same system you're in now. So he started teaching in 1981. He's been teaching VCE since then. He teaches all three maths in VCE at the VCE level. That's specialist, further maths, and maths methods. And he's still teaching at Pastorville Girls College. We've got Anita Anti here, who's joining us from the Clayton Poly. She's been teaching since 2008. She's a senior VCE teacher at her school. She teaches VCE Chem and Bio. She's the head of maths since 2020, and she's the high ability practice leader. And Jessie Chechi, who was born and brought up in Victoria, like a lot of the people joining here. And she's also gone through the VCE system. And she teaches VCE Bio and Psych. She's been teaching for 4 years. These are the contact details of the speakers. I'll display these contact details at the end of the call as well. But if you do need to contact anyone directly, you do have that opportunity to as well. Just give me a moment while I sort myself out. Give me 2 minutes. So a poll should be on your screen now. If you could answer that poll, just letting us know what year level you're in, so we have an idea of what year levels you're all joining us from. I'll give you just a few minutes to complete that. I think we've just got maybe 10 more people to answer. Cool, I'll end the poll there. If everyone can see those results, particular speakers, I think that'll be valuable information. I think the majority of our people are from year 9 and below, but we do have some people in year 10, 11 and 12 as well. A significant amount. Okay, beautiful. So I'm going to kick it off with some study skill tips. This is just my experiences. So give me 2 seconds. Can someone just let me know if you can see my screen? Thanks, Jessie. Okay, let me get through this. So these are some study skills and study habits that I've learned over the course of my studies, not just VCE. This has also been from literally this year that I've gotten around to getting through some of these study techniques. So I really wanted to share this with you because I thought these were really good ideas. So a few tips. Organization is key to getting through VCE, getting through year 9, year 10, year 11, year 12, staying on top of your assignments and assessments. So the key things, set a weekly or daily to-do list that you can follow. Use the Pomodoro Method. I'll explain what that is in a little bit, and prepare yourselves for upcoming deadlines and start well in advance. So I've got some pictures here from my friend's diary as well. So I don't have this neat handwriting. So on the like you can use a daily or weekly overview to hold yourself accountable to each day rather than just having a massive to-do list of things to do. So usually what I do is I set a week out, I set what I'm going to do in that day and set realistic goals of what you'll finish in each day. In high school, I usually only finish 2 or 3 things a day after school. So because you have class during the day, it might be a little harder to finish lots of things, but setting realistic goals for obviously if you have bigger tasks, it might take a longer time, but yeah, setting realistic goals but having a goal of what you want to finish during the day. This is a method called time blocking, and this is essentially blocking out your time and dedicating time every part of your day for something. This is something I started during lockdown. So everything you do, going to school, eating, seeing your friends, essentially blocking out all the time you have, and around that putting in study time. It doesn't mean you have to only study. As most of our speakers will tell you, you need to have a balance, but it does give you another way to keep yourself accountable. Like this time I've said to myself, I'm going to, from 10 o'clock to 12 o'clock, I'm going to study. So during lockdown, when we had the whole day to ourselves, our school didn't start with online classes. We just had the task to do, to just PowerPoint to do during the day. So this was something I found really, really useful during lockdown. And then having an overall assessment schedule type thing as well. This has been useful for me at the moment while I'm in uni, because it allows me to see at a glance what when my assessments are going to be grouped together. So obviously a few weeks before your assessments, you want to be starting to prepare. So yeah, that's another way. Okay, this is where one of my favorite tips are managing distractions. I'm so passionate about this because I cannot focus on doing one thing to save my life. Even like I was studying on Friday for my, I had books and books of readings to do for tomorrow, but I was just thinking about what to do, prepare for this. But obviously I didn't finish any of my uni stuff because I was worrying too much about this. And this is the stuff I was literally doing right before this call to keep myself focused. So this is the rule I swear by, the Pomodoro Method, and it is the best thing in the world. Essentially, it is 25 minutes of work and then 5 minutes of study. You'll hear this a lot in your on study blogs online. I think my mum was told in work to use the Pomodoro Technique as well. It's a very famous technique. Now, I personally don't use the 25-5 method. I use the 50-10 method. Or when I'm with my friends, I use the 75-15 method, but essentially the ratio, 5 minutes of work to 1 minute of break. And essentially you just focus. So if you're not motivated to do study, 25 minutes, okay, I'm gonna go sit down, start a 25-minute timer, put all your distractions away and just focus and only do that task or only do what you're meant to do for 25 minutes. Rather than half doing your work and half doing something else. This means you're able to focus and zone in on that task. And how I achieve this, and this probably articulates how bad I am at self-control, is I use 2 things. I use an app called Flora and I use a website blocker on my computer. So Flora, I got all my friends to use Flora, and essentially it's an app that allows you, essentially blocks everything off your phone. You start a timer and you plant a tree. And so I started a timer for 15 minutes just before this call. And I planted a tree. And if I leave the app for anything, it kills the tree. And then it's sad because I killed the tree. Now, it's even more fun if you do it with your friends. So what I like to do, my friend's living in Geelong and she's studying right now as well. So we both plant a tree together, and if one of us kills the tree, it kills the tree for both of us. Or you can put monetary incentives in. You can put $5 in, and if you kill the tree, they take $5 out of your bank account if you kill the tree, and you can incentivize yourself like that to not use your phone. So essentially, yeah, I put my phone on the side, start the timer, have the timer next to me, and start studying. And then I put my phone out of the way, but I still have my computer as a distraction. My fingertips know how to quickly log into Instagram, Facebook, Messenger, YouTube really, really fast. And I find myself having these tabs open without even thinking. And I have a website blocker on my Google Chrome. So whenever I try Instagram, Messenger, Facebook, or YouTube, or any of those blocked items there, it automatically redirects it to my university portal right onto the homepage, or if it's Compass for you or whatever you use at school. And that's how I do it. Another method I use is using sticky notes for distractions. So within my 25 minutes of concentrated study, I will have a pile of sticky notes next to me, and I jot down anything that comes up in my brain. So I've literally got sticky notes of stuff I was meant to do, and that came up while I was doing my homework today. So this is how I avoid distractions, and it's really, really important that you focus on getting your study time is focus time. Doesn't mean you only have to make sure you do take meaningful breaks. There's no focus time, it's not going to be productive. But that focus time, being focused, allows you to finish your work so much more faster. Rather than a 100-page reading that I was doing today, taking many, many days, I can do it in maybe an hour or half, or an hour or a bit. And that's from a personal anecdotal evidence. Some other things is preparing your environment. So when I go into my focus, I put my water bottle next to me, snacks if it's around lunch and I need some snacks. Everything I need, I put in front of me. I go to the toilet before, and then I take useful breaks. So in your breaks, don't stay in your room or don't stay where you're studying. Get up, talk to your friends if you're at school. Make sure you leave your study area so that you're conditioning your brain to treat your desk as a study area and everywhere else as not a study area. Using the sticky note method for anything that pops up in your brain so that you're not addressing that while you're studying. Keep your 25 minutes, wait until the 25 minutes is up, and then you can address whatever you write down in your sticky notes. And mitigate all distractions before you start studying. So you know yourself as better than I do. So my biggest distractions are social media. So that's why I turn all of that off. But if you have another distraction, get rid of that so that you can be focused. And you're only doing it for yourself. You're not doing it for anyone else. You're studying for yourself, for the betterment of yourself. So think about that whenever you're starting to study. Well-being, I'm going to quickly go over this because Jesse Chechi will go over this as well in a bit. Essentially, you need balance. Don't make school your everything. I know that this can be an easy rabbit hole to fall into. My mum always says anything in excess is a bad thing. But having balance in your high school years, especially in year 12, is really, really important. Eat well, sleep well, get active, be social, do what you enjoy, and study. Don't make studying your whole thing. I'm just going to quickly go over two principles or fundamental principles for study. So there are two principles are called active recall and spatial recognition. And essentially these two principles are two schools of thought that you can take ideas from to best make sure that you're memorizing all the content you're learning. So a lot of exams or examinations later in the year will be based on memorization as well as application. But these are some tools on how to memorize. So what is active recall? Active recall is essentially the best way to learn isn't by rereading, highlighting, summarizing, or rewriting your notes. That's not how you learn. That's passive recall. Active recall is retrieving stuff from your brain and making it harder to retrieve stuff from your brain. So the harder you work to get that information, the more your the more that information will stick in your brain, the more the memory muscle will strengthen. So what does active recall look like? That can be Quizlets or flashcards at a very rudimentary level. I know around exam time last year, there was what people would do. We had whiteboard tables at school, and people would start at the beginning of the day, they get a whiteboard mark and just fill out the entire table just like this with everything they knew from the entire year of content. And that was their method of active recall. They were getting their brain to essentially fill out all the gaps. And then when they came back at the end, they would look at the study guide, the study design, and they'd say, oh, I missed this, this, this. And then the next day they try again. And they repeated that to make sure that they were memorizing what they needed to go into the exam with. And you always heard of teaching someone else. Teaching someone else is the best way to learn, but obviously have somewhere to jot down what you're missing or what you're memorizing, your gaps in the knowledge. And obviously practice questions. For our younger students, you won't know what SACS is, but practice SACs if you have them, or practice tests and practice exams. Any practice questions you have, use them to your advantage. And in combination with active recall, you want to apply something called spaced repetition. Now, what spaced repetition is essentially when you learn something, there's this exponential curve of exponential delay of how quickly you're going to forget something. So essentially today, say today I learn English language, I learn about social purposes of informal language, and I'm going to quickly, as time goes on, forget about what I was studying, what I studied. But we need to use active recall, the methods I told you before, to stop that forgetting curve from completely losing the knowledge you learn. So what does that mean? So that means revisiting the content you learn. So say today I learned about English language informal social purposes. Maybe tomorrow I'll revisit that knowledge again. And then maybe later in the week, maybe on Thursday, I'll come back to it and use one of those active recall methods I use to recall the memory. And that helps better long-term retention. As you can see, the curve starts to flatten out. And over time, you will be better able to recall the things you've learned. And that means you're more familiar with what you've learned as time goes on. And this is built into your school curriculum. So at this, obviously you learn the content at the start, then you do homework. That's your first form of spaced repetition. And then you study for a test. That's another form. And then you do a mid-year exam if you have those. You're revisiting again. And then you have your end of year exam and you're revisiting again. So as you can see, this spaced repetition is built in to your school curriculums as well. And here's just a table of an example of how you might use spaced repetition. For spaced repetition, if you're someone who uses flashcards, you can use something like this. You can have a big stack of flashcards and categorize them in how familiar you are with the content you learned. Or what I did when I was doing English language, I used this note-taking method called the Cornell method. So on the left, I didn't have any notes I didn't have any notes with headings in year 12 for English language. What I did was I created a table for all my notes. On the left side, I'd move the headings or change the headings into questions, and on the right, I'd have the answer to those questions. And that was my notes for the entire content. And then what I did is I copied and pasted that into Quizlet, and you can just copy and paste it. It automatically generates flashcards, which I used while I was walking to school or when I was free during the day. And then practice. There's one thing to just memorize the content. It's another thing to apply the content. And that's where your practice questions, practice SACs, practice exams, practice text comes in. So for VCE students, your exams often repeat themselves. So doing those practice questions, practice exams, practice SACs gets you familiar with the type of questions that do come up. And it helps you apply the content you've learned to scenarios that are brought up in the assessments. Use the examiner's reports. Again, this is for VCE students, but you can, if you have examiner reports in other year levels, you can use those as well, but use examiner reports. Typically, if a cohort has done badly on a question last year, the chief examiner will say, the cohort performed badly in this. It'll probably show up again next year. And I know this because most of those questions that came up in the year before that were performed badly showed up again the next year. And yeah, but for all students, if you don't have any of these available to you, your textbooks have practice questions, and sometimes the textbooks even have practice exams or practice test format things inside. Ask your teachers for extra resource and practice questions. The practice is so important, and that is another form of active recall, because you're getting your brain, when it's closed book, you're getting your brain to think really hard about what information you're looking for. And really quickly, this is just a way how I kept track in preparation for my year 12 exams. So from the end of term 3 to all the way to my exam date, I had this little table. And because I'm a little nerd, I formatted it and stuff to average out my scores and the mean and the median and the countdown. But essentially I had schedule for what exam I'd do each day. And then I would have a table, I'd have a graph which plotted out all my exam results to see if it was an upwards curve. But the most important thing out of this is this error log here. It's one thing to just do your exam, it's another thing to correct them. So for a 3-hour exam, if it was a 3-hour exam, I'd spend almost 45 minutes to an hour correcting that exam. And then in this error log, I'd write down every mistake I made and why I made that mistake. Why I made that mistake is really important so you don't make that mistake again in your next exam. And this is essentially my record of all the things I got wrong. And I split up my errors into 2 things: simple mistakes where I just didn't do something correctly, or a knowledge error or knowledge gap where I didn't know something and I need to revisit the content. And this was really, really important. I revised this every day. I'm getting closer to my exams. That's all the tips from me. I have plenty more. I try to fit this into a short session, but those are my contact details. I'll display everyone's contact details at the end, and I will hand over to Jessie Chechi for some tips about culture and mental health.
Thank you so much, Ruben. Oh my goodness, I feel like I need a 1-minute break just to take in all of that information. I think that was extremely valuable. And you know, all of those tips are very, very important, particularly when it comes to VCE. So thank you so much for that. And I'm sure that PowerPoint is going to be available to all students and parents. Is that right? Wonderful.
The recording will be available, so yes.
Even better. Perfect. Thank you so much, Ruben. Okay, so I will be speaking mainly about mental health, and it is something that I'm very passionate about, particularly within the Malayali community. It's something that I have seen not only growing up, but particularly working as a teacher now in various schools in the northern suburbs. You see a lot of Malayali students, particularly I'm specifically speaking about Malayali students, who really do struggle with the expectations of their parents. And so this short session that I'm speaking about will be aimed mainly at parents, but it also does have, it also aims to speak to the students as well. So without further ado, I shall share my screen. And I just thought we'd kick off really lightly, and I'd just show you one of my favorite movies, of course, and I'm sure you're all familiar with it. It's just a short clip. Just watch and enjoy this small scene from Bangalore days. Hopefully you were able to watch that video without too much lag or anything. But I wanted to start off this quick short session about mental health with that particular clip because I find it so relevant. And the first time I was watching this movie, I thought it was absolutely hilarious because although it is a scene that is straight from Kerala, it's very much the same scenario here, and it's the same pressure that our kids do face. So I'll just share my PowerPoint slide as well. Okay, wonderful. So just as I start talking about the importance of mental health, I think the number one thing to acknowledge is talking about how difficult it is for parents to actually understand the kids who are growing up in Australia and their kind of world and what it's like for them at school. I am extremely sympathetic towards the parents here who have to understand how their kids are growing up, understanding what their friends are like and what they're surrounded by, particularly in the school context. As they go to school, they are surrounded by different cultures, they're surrounded by different issues, and so it's extremely difficult for parents to actually understand what they're going through or how exactly to tackle certain issues or questions when their child comes home and asks them. Today, we're not going to be delving into those kinds of issues. But if you do have any questions or anything, please do feel free to message. All conversations are confidential, but this is something that I am very passionate about, and it's something that I've heard from many Malayali students across a lot of schools, particularly when it comes to mental health and, you know, the pressure they feel or the expectations that they feel. So let's just quickly dive into what thoughts are going through our students' heads. The number one, these are just a few comments that I have heard personally, not only while growing up, and, you know, some of them are even stuff that I've felt, but some that my friends have felt growing up here in Australia. And a lot of these are very common among the students as they speak to me about how they're finding their studies going. A lot of stress is felt from home, but it's mainly the culture around the expectations of studies and doing well in VCE. So a lot of students face this particular scenario. My mother, father wants me to do really well, and I don't have any room to make any mistakes. I must succeed. So your students, your children are all going to school with this mentality majority of the time. Although at home they might seem like they're playing video games, or, you know, they might be messaging on their phone constantly, at the end of the day, they're still your children, and they still love you so much, and they still want to make you proud, because they really do know the struggles that parents are facing migrating to Australia and how difficult it can be. So at the end of the day, all children do understand how hard it is, and they do want to make their parents really proud. So they always do feel this internal pressure, or they might not show it, but they do feel this pressure that I must succeed. You know, I don't have any room to make any mistakes. I have to do this really, really well. A lot of children do also feel like they get compared. I get compared to other children in society. Others are doing much better than me. I have to compete. This is a very relevant point that students feel, and sometimes this is very directly correlated between Atar scores. So in year 12, Atar seems like the biggest kind of thing that happens in their life in terms of academics. An Atar score is basically the score you receive in year 12 that can determine which pathways you can go into. This is often a false assumption, saying that this is the only way they can get into a particular course. Just because you do not get a certain ATAR score doesn't mean you cannot follow a certain career pathway. However, that's how we kind of treat it. So it might be coming from a place of love for, you know, our fellow family friends, but a lot of students have grown up with this, and they do feel that pressure of, okay, everyone in society is calling my house to know what my ATAR mark is. And this is something that is very daunting for our children, and it's something that they absolutely hate because they feel that extra pressure. They feel like everyone is comparing them and talking about them in their friendship circles. Like I said, this is something, you know, we don't mean to do it out of harm, but sometimes we do want to just find out, you know, how our family friends are going or how our children are going. And so we might ask, you know, or, you know, what particular mark did they get? And there's nothing wrong with this per se, but we really do need to think about how the child is feeling. So please have a think about what kind of questions you can ask instead. So some questions that are a lot more better to ask in that scenario is, you know, is your child happy with the mark that they received? Or has your child gotten the mark that they wish to get into their course? Or, you know, which course are they happy to do? We often forget that it's not always about the mark or, you know, asking about what particular mark did they get. In India, it's a completely different culture, and I completely understand that, how, you know, on the boards they usually have scores printed up. But in Australia, it's a completely different system where all the marks are confidential. No one knows, you know, what any student gets in terms of ATAR or even SAC marks. We don't really find out. Teachers have access to that, and it stays between them. So this is something that they are thinking about when it comes to receiving their ATAR mark, and you know, they do daunt those phone calls are very daunting for them. Another thought that goes through their heads: what if I don't get the marks my parents want? They work so hard for me to be there. My parents want another question or another remark. my parents want me to do medicine, but I have no interest whatsoever. I guess I have to do what they say. And so a lot of students feel like they can't say no to their parents, or that they feel a lot of pressure to just go with whatever their parents want. At the end of the day, please remember, I do understand that, parents want the best for their children, and obviously them, saying these certain comments to make sure that their child succeeds. But this can have an enormous impact on their mental health and the kinds of stress that they feel. So I would love to get the parents, not right now, but just have a conversation with yourself. And these are just some questions that you can actually ask yourself when you are thinking about your children. So again, just reflection questions. So number one, have you actually thought about what my child is going through? So ask yourself, what is my child going through? What are they actually enjoying in their life right now? Or what are they struggling with? Sometimes we get so caught up with, 9-to-5 job and then cooking, cleaning, running the household. It becomes really, really hard to just pause and reflect. But it's extremely crucial to do this, particularly now after COVID, because the mental health of our students has really declined post-COVID. Second question, how can I effectively communicate with my child? Is my tone helping the situation? If there's anything that is the most difficult thing to do, it is talking to a teenager who has emotions going here and there, and it's impossible to talk to them. So have a think to yourselves, how can I effectively communicate with my child? Is the tone that I'm speaking in, am I raising my voice, or am I able to calmly speak to my child? This is very, very important. Question number 3, and this is something that we don't actually, sometimes we overdo it, or sometimes we don't actually do it at all. And that is, does my child actually know how much I'm struggling to understand their world? We quite often make sure that our kids understand, look, I'm working so hard for you. I had, night shift, I had day shift, I have to cook, I have to clean, I have to do all these things. And we often tell our struggles to the kids. But have we stopped to actually think about, what are they going through? How did they get to school? Did they talk to other people? What's going on in their friendship groups? Are their friends going to certain parties? Are there drugs and alcohol happening at the parties? What's going through their head? And this is something that we really forget to ask ourselves. Does your child actually know how hard it is for you to understand their world? It's very important for children to understand that you don't get it. And there's absolutely no shame in telling your child that you can't understand their world. You have grown up in a completely different situation in a different country. Majority of our parents have grown up in Kerala or out of Kerala, anywhere in India, or even other countries, wherever. But a lot of parents who aren't from here don't understand what it's like to grow up in Australia. And you need to make sure that we communicate this with our children as well. Because our kids will sometimes, they're young and they haven't matured and they don't understand that their parents don't get it. And sometimes as children, you start to think, why don't my parents get it? I don't understand, why can't they see my side? Have you communicated with your child? Have you told them that it is difficult for me to understand because I wasn't born here, so I don't know what it's like? It's very important to tell our kids that, because sometimes they forget, or they're young. They don't actually have the capacity to think that far. Fourth question, do I compare my child with others? What are my child's strengths, and how can I guide them more positively? Sometimes we accidentally, and it's very accidental in conversation, sometimes we start to compare our children with others, and we start to say, oh, look at Ruben, he studied so well. Look at all of his study notes, why don't you learn like him? Look at all his notes. He's doing the Pomodoro Technique, and he's doing, what was it? I forgot half of it already. Not a good student, clearly. But if you're comparing, even just small comments can make your child feel like you are constantly comparing them. Instead of having that tone, making sure that you're not comparing, but you're saying, hey, Ruben seems like a good role model. Why do you think he's a good role model? What are his strengths? Making sure that you acknowledge, hey, maybe Ruben isn't perfect. He's also got flaws. He said that he's got distractions as well. How is he trying to tackle that particular difficulty? So actually talking through why that particular person is a good role model rather than comparing. And that's what's very important for our parents to think about. I'm just going to switch hats right now and just take a pause for a second, and we're just going to move on to...
Just give me 2 seconds. I'll just jump in there, Jessie.
Yeah, please go ahead, please.
Like with the comparing thing, most of the time, our understanding of how other families or other students are going on is not the full picture. You will only ever get the polished version of other people's situations. Personally, in my first physics stack in year 12, my year 12 physics stack, I got a 48%. And I turned that around. That's another thing. But like no one's perfect, and everyone is going through their own struggles, and they're all figuring out how to do things on their own. But like, yes, absolutely, no one is perfect. Everyone does have their strengths, but everyone under the hood has their weaknesses and are tackling their own issues as well. So yeah, that's just something I wanted to say.
No, please. And especially I think Anita Auntie, Vijay Uncle and Roy Uncle, please jump in at any point to add to any of my points as well, particularly being parents. I don't really have much experience yet, so can't really speak too much about this, so I'll move on. All right, so this is more aimed at students. So any students who are listening, no matter what age you are, I really want you to have a think about these particular questions, because this is something that I think is very important for the kids to actually think about. So students, any children who are listening to this right now, please pay attention for a second and have a look through these questions. So question 1, have you actually thought about what your parents are going through? Have you thought about what makes your parents happy? Okay, and forget about yourself, but actually what makes them happy? Do they have any hobbies, or is there any specific behaviors that you do that makes them happy? Is it when you help around because their workload is extremely heavy? What is it that actually makes them happy? Also have a think about what makes your parents sad. Is it you waking up late? Is it you sleeping in? Why does it make them sad? Have a think about what makes them happy, what makes them sad, and have a think about what your parents are actually going through. Question number 2, and this is something that is extremely hard to do, but it's something that you have to put in a lot of mental work for. This question is, how can I self-regulate my emotions to communicate? Quite often we find it very hard to communicate with our parents, okay, because sometimes they just don't listen, or sometimes they're not understanding our point. But are you able to control your emotions without crying or without yelling or without, yelling out any mean comments to your parents? Are you actually able to just self-regulate and be able to communicate with your parents? This is very, very important, because your emotions will add fuel to the fire, okay, to whatever conversations you're having with your parents. So it's really important to make sure that you are able to stay calm, okay, and you're able to effectively communicate with your parents, okay, because yelling at them or crying or just slamming the door shut does not do anything. It doesn't solve anything. It doesn't make the situation any better. So you need to really think about your actions, and you need to think about the tone in which you speak to your parents. Question number 3. I know you're all in your teenage world, and you've got your life on Instagram and flicking through social media, whatnot, or you're focused on your studies, or you're focused on your sport or your hobbies, or even your church friends, busy studying for Sunday school exams, I'm sure. And so you're always stuck in your own little world. But you need to really think about, do you put enough effort to actually speak to your own parents? Do you actually try to tell them how hard it is for you or what's going on at school? Quite often, this is the number one thing that my parents would do. Being an only child, I was treated like a princess growing up. But I'd come after school and they'd be like, oh, schooling in and I'd be like, yeah, it was good. And that was end of conversation. I wouldn't say anything else. My parents would have to poke and prod and be like, oh, what did you eat? What did you do? What was your favorite class? Those kinds of questions. And they had to always start the conversation. As I started growing up older, I'd be like, hey, no, actually, I learned this and I learned that. And then that's when I started telling them. I felt safe, and I trusted them enough, because I knew that they actually cared enough to actually ask more questions. But I had to put in the work. So I had to put in effort to actually speak to my parents. So once I started doing that, that's when I was able to say, hey, I went to this party, this was happening, you know, I didn't feel like I was safe, or, you know, whatever the situation. And that's when you actually start to create more of an open line of communication between each other. So please put in effort to talk to your parents. You might feel like you can't tell your parents anything, they're going to be super strict, but you need to learn to actually start telling them little by little of what it's like for you. All right. And lastly, how do you actually tell your parents that you're sad or you're lost or you're frustrated with them? Have a think again, thinking back to how you're able to self-regulate your emotions and how exactly you're able to communicate how you're feeling as well. I might stop there because I'm watching the time and it's just going very quickly. So I will hand it over back to you, Ruben. But like I said, if there are any questions, feel free to message either at the end, there's an email address, feel free to message.
Thanks, Jesse Chechi. Next up, we have Roy Uncle. He's just going to introduce what VCE is. VCE is to everyone. So, Roy Uncle, I'll hand over the floor to you.
Yes, can you please stop sharing the screen, Jesse, please? Good evening, everyone. I'm going to give you some information that won't be interesting as Jesse and Ruben did. So I'm going to say some facts. And I just would like to say, schooling is the best time in your life. You please enjoy it. Don't stress out after hearing all these big jargons. And I want you to leave this meeting very happy and more than welcome to receive any questions you may have either by email or by phone. Some people take VCE as a very cruel experience, and some may take it as a very cool experience. It depends upon how you take it. Let me share a screen with you. So VCE stands for Victorian Certificate of Education.
Uncle, we can't see you. No.
Sorry.
Yeah, all good.
It is a 2-year certificate program used either to apply for work or go to tertiary education or to seek employment. The minimum requirement to get a VCA as per Victorian Curriculum Assessment Authority is the following. You should understand that year 11 semester 1 course is called Unit 1, and year 11 semester 2 is called Unit 2, and year 12 semester 1 is Unit 3, and year 12 semester 2 is Unit 4. So out of this, you need to have 16 units. 8 must be at a Unit 3 and 4 level. That means you are doing mainly in year 12. And 4 must be of 3 and 4 sequence. A minimum of 3 units of English area of study that in units 3 and 4 is compulsory. And the VCE includes more than 90 subjects to choose from. And each school decides which VCE subjects they offer. And I'm just very happy to inform you that this year, Malayalam has been included as one of the languages, but you can do 18 students are currently doing as a wet subject starting this year. So I will come back to you with more information about Atar, studies course, etc. later when Ruben asked me to do that. I'm going to stop sharing the screen now. Thank you.
Thanks, Roy Uncle. And I'm going to get Vijay Pichai to quickly talk about early entry VCE, and this will be quite relevant for our year 9 and year 10 students who might be in that stage of looking at year 9 students who might be in the stage of looking at subjects to take in year 10.
Okay, hello everyone. I just want to talk about the advantages of completing units 1 and 2 in year 10 and hence 3 and 4 in year 11. Therefore, you end up completing 6 year 12 subjects rather than the normal 7 subjects. The advantages are the best 4 results in year 12 subjects are counted, of which English has to be included, and 10% of the 5th and 6th subjects. The 6th subject gives you a 10% advantage. The 6th subject ensures that a poor mark in another subject can become one of your best 4 subjects. Doing a unit 1 and 2 in year 10 gives you a better idea how VCE works. For example, work requirements, SACs, expectations, VCE, etc. It is a positive experience and an eye-opener for many people. Concentrating on one year 12 subject in year 11 allows the students to concentrate fully on that subject and spend more time for SACs. Many students perform well in the year 12 subjects done in year 11. The pressures for a good student are less, as they only have to worry for the SACs for one subject. In year 12, they may end up with anything from 0 to 4 SACs in 1 week. By the way, even if you do badly in that 6th subject, it does not matter, as it will become your 6th subject and only 10% is counted. What are the disadvantages? Not that many, but if you are struggling with schoolwork in year 9, find it hard to concentrate on work in class and home, and do not do well in tests, then doing 6 subjects is not a good idea. If schoolwork stresses you out, then the added pressure of doing a VCE subject in year 10 will add to that pressure. And finally, the parents, the director of the parents, they should not be forcing their child to do 6 subjects if their child is unwilling. VCE requires maturity and self-motivation to do well, including getting an S. Therefore, the parents should be realistic in the ability of their child. While I'm on this topic, I thought it'd be worthwhile telling you who decides if you can do 1 and 2 in year 10 and unit 3 and 4 in year 11. That is 1 year earlier. In public schools, state schools, if the student insists that they want to do a unit earlier, they can end up doing the unit as long as the class is running. By the way, some classes will not run if the student numbers are low and the timetable could not be adjusted. The school may advise the student not to do year 1 and 2, units 1 and 2, after looking at the student's year 9 results or by the recommendations of the teachers. In private schools, it's often a different scenario altogether. The school will decide if you can do the subject earlier, depending on your test results in year 9. Okay, if there's any questions, please put it on chat or you can email me later. Back to you, Ruben.
Thanks, Vijayapachar. And I'll hand over back to Jessie Chechi, who will talk about subject selection. And this is another very important thing for our year 9 and 10 students, but also for our year 11 and 12 students looking at VTAC applications in the future.
Thanks, Ruben. Gosh, I'm already bored of my own voice. I really apologize. Alrighty, so we are having a look at what subjects you should have a look at. So this is for our year 9s, year 10s, year 11s, and also some information for the year 12s as well. And this is also particularly relevant not only to the students, but also to the parents. So what subjects should I pick? There are 3 scenarios usually when it comes to students. Either you know exactly what you want to do, and that is fantastic. We'll go through that process of how exactly you can pick your subjects based on whatever career pathway you're going for. Otherwise, you've already picked your subjects and you have no idea what career path you can take. The subjects are already picked and you don't know what you're able to do. So we'll have a look at that particular scenario. And then the third scenario, which is most likely the most common, and that is I have no idea what subjects to pick. Please help me. And that's the one that we're going to do last. So let's go through the first one. If you know exactly what you are going to do and what career path you want to go through, then your first step is to actually have a look at which universities are either close to you in proximity or which particular universities are best for whichever career path you're going for. So for example, if you are looking at the engineering side of things, then you're looking at RMIT as one of the best. If you're looking more health-based, then you're looking at ACU. So for different career pathways, you're looking at different universities that can help. So if you do know your career pathway, so I'm going to go through a very quick example and we'll have a look at a particular scenario where a student wants to do accounting and they're set on doing accounting at Monash University. So let's go through this example very quickly. I'll just stop sharing for a second. I'll just get rid of Bangladesh for a second. Okay, so as you can see, I am now on Google. Very quickly, I'm just going to show you this example. So I want to do accounting at Monash. First step, type in Monash University. You don't have to type in which bachelor's or anything you want to do. You'll go onto the first link that says Monash University. You'll then go on to study, and then you can go into the courses. Majority of the university websites are set up like this, where you'll be able to see, you know, study or about or international students or whatever, but usually you go into study and you'll go into courses. Most of the time it will be split into undergraduate or postgraduate. All students who are going through secondary schooling, you are looking for undergraduate degrees. So then you go for courses. You can either search your particular course, whichever course you're going for. We're looking at accounting, so let's try and have a look if accounting is here. I can't see accounting, so I'm just going to search for it. I'm going to put accounting and hopefully something comes up. I can see accounting is there, so accounting, Monash Business School. Accounting bachelor degree, so please make sure you look for where it says course. So you click on accounting, you're looking at the bachelor degree, and as soon as you jump onto this particular page, no matter what degree you're looking at, no matter what university you're looking at, it will roughly look the same. You'll always see an Atar, so this means this is the particular score that you are looking for guaranteed entry into the following year. So current year 12s, if you are looking at doing a Bachelor of Accounting, then in 2023, you must get an Atar of 75. That is not only the only, that is not the only thing you are looking for. It's not only about your ATAR score, but it's also the subjects that you have picked. So there is a particular section for all courses called subject prerequisites. A prerequisite is a particular subject that you must complete in order to do the course. All right, you don't, in certain cases, you might have to get a specific study score, which is usually out of 50, but otherwise, it's not a huge deal. You just need to get a pass mark usually to get into most courses. So for this particular accounting course, we're looking at subject prerequisites, must do English, must do maths. It hasn't specified, so I'm going to click view specific scores and subjects, and it'll take me to Australian VCE subjects. I must complete units 3 and 4 English. That is usually compulsory for all students, so that's not something that you specifically need to pick out, but that's just something you need to make sure of. And it is asking you to complete units 3 and 4 in maths, but as you know, in VCE, there are multiple maths. So you might have maths methods or specialist maths, or you can also do further mathematics. So these are the different maths options, and you must get at least 22 in maths methods or spec, or 25 in further mathematics. So that is the specific subjects that you must complete. So this is how you can pick your subjects for the future. It also says IB subjects. I will leave that for Anidanti to talk about later on. So that's how you know how to pick your subjects if you know your career pathway. If you have already picked your career pathway, I'll just stop sharing again. If you have already picked your career pathway, sorry, one more thing before I move on. Sorry, going back. If you do know your career pathway, or eventually when you do get to year 12, there is something called VTAC, and this is only used in year 12. It is part of the VCE process. However, it is only used in year 12, and basically it is a center for, it is a hub pretty much. Okay, so it's a center for tertiary admissions only. So you're looking at course applications into universities. So the Victorian Tertiary Admissions Centre is a hub for tertiary course applications. So VTAC will receive and process all of the applications to the institutions for you. There is no need for you to apply to specific universities because VTAC will be doing that for your child in year 12. So the school will be running with the VTAC process, and they will ensure that your child enrolls into VTAC. So there's no stress in terms of applying for certain universities because this is all moderated through VTAC. So this is the process. The particular website is here, and this is all the information that you need for VTAC. This is the VTAC homepage. So all of the applications will be done through VTAC, so you don't need to worry about applying for directly to universities. Going back to our core PowerPoint. So offers are basically used in year 12. Usually you will put all of your course preferences in August through VTAC, and that's done at school. And your offers will be given in January. So you do have time after receiving your ATAR score to actually change your preferences. So in August, for all the current year 12 students, you will be writing your preferences in terms of which particular subjects, which particular courses you want to apply for, but you will get another opportunity to change your course preference at the end of the year after you receive your ATAR, in the scenario that you get a better ATAR than what you expected, or in the scenario that you get a lower ATAR than what you expected. So there is a chance for you to change it. If you do not get your first offer, you will go through second round offers, and quite often there has never been, it's not very common for you to not get a offer if you have filled the prerequisites and the ATAR amount. Lastly, HEX and HELP. I'm not going to dive too much into this. However, HEX HELP is basically a financial aid system that is given by the government. So this, I'm leaving that particular website there, and that is for all parents. If your child is an Australian citizen or has permanent residency, then your child is most likely entitled to a Commonwealth supported place. So if we go back to the accounting example, if you go down, so this is mainly for parents, if you have a look at applications and fees, you can see that someone with a Commonwealth supported place has usually a fee of $13,500 per year. You do not have to pay this amount in full. Okay, there is only an enrollment fee, which is roughly, I think, $150 to $350 per year that you have to pay. But otherwise, this whole amount is usually covered by what we call HEX. All right, so if we go back to HEX, this is HEX Help. So it is basically a loan that the government will give for your child. And when your child enters the workforce and starts to generate an income, then a small amount will be deducted from their income to pay off their HEX help loan over their lifetime. Again, I'm not going into too much detail, only because we don't have many year 12 students here, but this is something that's very useful, and this PowerPoint will be available to you afterwards, so you can have a look at all of these links. Right, so second scenario. Sorry, I said I would go into second scenario, didn't go there quickly. Second scenario, you've already chosen your subjects, but you don't know what particular courses you can get into. So you can just use this particular website here, and that will take you to I can click on it, that will take you to this website here. So you can actually click on using your whole VCE study program to see which courses you're eligible for. So let's say that you're a current year 12, you can see, all right, I've already picked chemistry. What courses can I do with chemistry? I've picked chemistry. I know that I'm doing maths methods. So then you can write down all of the subjects that you have completed, and you can click on list courses, and it will show you all of the courses that you are eligible for based on your prerequisites. All right, so over here, because I did chemistry and I did maths methods, I've got 729 courses that I can choose from. So you can sit down with your parents and you can go through each one. Do I want to do accounting? Don't think so. What about acting? Maybe. Ooh, that sounds great. So these are the different options that you can go through. All right, lastly, which is majority of our students, we have students who have no idea what subjects they want to pick. And that is completely okay, because that is majority of our students, and you are extremely young to actually know what you want to do for the rest of your life. So please don't feel pressured to know what you have to do in life right now. So if you have no idea, hopefully, so many things popping up. Hopefully, you will know which subjects you enjoy, and you know which subjects that you're good at. If you have subjects that you enjoy and you're good at, go with those particular subjects. Okay, so those are the subjects that you should be choosing. Don't go for the subjects that you are not good at, or the subjects that you absolutely hate but your parents love and want you to do. Don't do those subjects. Okay, have a think about what career pathways you can go down if you pick those particular subjects. You can also have a look at the VCE study design. So the VCE study design is basically the curriculum outline or the syllabus of a particular subject. And if you read a particular VCE study designs, for example, if you want to have a look at psychology, you can read the study design and it'll tell you absolutely everything that that you will learn in units 1 all the way to units 4. So in year 11 and 12, you'll know exactly what you're looking at. So for example, if you're interested in how memory works or how sleeping patterns work, if these are topics that interest you, then definitely go for those top subjects. If you still have no idea, please, 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 every school has a careers department. You must use your careers counselors in order to speak to them so that they can help you with this particular journey. All right, you can book appointments to talk about your career choices, and this is widely available throughout all schools. I suggest this highly, and I suggest you do this with your parents as a fun bonding activity as well. Doing a personality test. It actually seems quite small, or it seems like a silly thing to do, but it's actually a very helpful thing in terms of understanding who you are as a person and who you're growing into and what certain traits you have to help you pick career choices. So there's a link there to a personality test that you can do. It takes about 15 minutes, but it'll help you think about, are you more creative, or are you a more logical thinker? Do you enjoy maths, or are you more literature based? It'll really help you figure out which career pathways you could consider. Obviously don't go with it if you feel like it doesn't align with your values, and definitely don't go for it. But please do have a think about doing a personality test if you have no idea. Lastly, do not pick the subjects that affect your mental health extremely. Do not pick the subjects that your friends are picking, thinking that you are going to be in that particular class with your friends. Do not pick subjects because of certain teachers. You might enjoy a certain subject because of the teacher. Please make sure that you enjoy the subject as the content and not because you have a favorite teacher at school. And lastly, have a chat to your parents. Please don't just pick subjects without your parents knowing. It is something that you need to talk to your parents about. So do have that discussion. If your parents do disagree, then you need to find a way to keep communicating your feelings and your thought processes. Okay, so please have a think about which areas you might be interested in. And that will conclude my session for today. So If you have any further questions, particularly subject selection wise, you can contact any of the speakers from tonight. You can speak to your VCE coordinators at your school. You can speak to your year level leaders. I highly recommend students speaking to careers counselors. Okay, they are your #1 support in schools. And you can even speak, if you're thinking of doing a particular science, then you can also speak to certain faculty leaders as well. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask.
Thanks, Jessie Chechi. I'm quickly going to hand over to Anitha to just quickly touch on the IB, which is an alternative form of VCE.
Good evening, everyone. Just give me 1 second, Ruben. I think there's someone at the door. Just give me 2 seconds. I'll be right back.
Oh, good. Maybe I will go to Vijay then to talk about assessments. So from here on in, all of our speakers will be talking about VCE, and then when Anitha comes back, she'll talk about IB. So this will be more focused on the higher year levels, but I strongly recommend the lower year levels to stick around because it is useful information to have for the future. It's really interesting to get familiar with the terminology. Vijay, over to you.
Okay. Thank you, Ruben. What I thought today was, I'll put it like a question and answer thing, so that these are the frequently asked questions by the students to me in my school. First of all, what is a work requirement? Work requirements are tasks set by the teacher for the topic or outcomes which the students have to show satisfactory understanding of the concepts taught. So you have to show satisfactory understanding. Each school will have their own way of checking your understanding. Some schools rely on verbal discussions, some on worksheets done, some on quizzes. There's many, many different ways of the teachers testing you, of checking your understanding. The work requirements have to be satisfied to get an S for the subject and hence the unit. Please note that an N in any one of the outcomes will result in N for the whole of the unit. In our school, we give multiple opportunities to the students to convince the teacher of their understanding before or in the SACs, that's tests. Whether a student receives an S or an N for the unit is passed on to VCAA. But then again, I repeat, each school has got their own way of checking and how they give opportunities to the students. What is a SAC? SAC stands for School Assessed Coursework. Generally can be considered as tests, which is set by the teachers, and it's a common SAC for all the students who are doing the subject in the VCE at school. What I mean by that is, if there's about 3 or 4 classes doing psychology, then everybody will be doing the same SAC. The SAC mark indicates the level of achievement in that topic, which is based on outcomes. The marks in the SACs in Unit 1 and 2 stays at school, and parents and students are informed of their SAC results. It allows students to make an informed decision whether they should drop the subject or continue with it the following year. In a Unit 3 and 4 unit, the SAC marks are sent to the VCAA. The SAC results in Units 3 and 4 are used to rank the students in the student school. I repeat, it is to rank the students. Some students give hard SACs to separate the top students as they need to be ranked and separated. And some schools with a weaker group give easier SACs so as to engage the majority who are weak. The authority, which is the VCAA, then scales the marks up and down sent by the VCE coordinator, depending on the performance of the school group in the end of the year exam. Again, I repeat, it is depending on how the group went at the end of the year. This will be discussed later. What is the major difference between work requirements and a SAC? The work requirement decides whether you have passed the unit, while the SAC results indicate how well you have performed. It is essential that you meet the requirements for satisfactory completion. I personally know that it is possible to pass the SAC, say get 50% or 60%, but fail the unit as you may not have reached the satisfactory requirements of the outcomes in that topic. So the mark itself is not the whole criteria. It is showing satisfactory understanding of the concepts. Often, the teachers will indicate early enough that you are at risk of failing the outcomes and hence the unit. So work requirements are just as important as SACs to get you to pass the unit. What is a SAC score? Every school has a component which is school-based assessment. In some student subjects, it could be 25%, and in some up to 50%. All the SAC results in Unit 3 and 4 with the total for each subject is sent to VCAA by the VCE coordinator. The VCAA ranks all the students doing that subject at the school. It then scales it up and down depending on the performance of the group as a whole, as a whole at the end of the year. It is to make the SACs fair to compensate for schools that give SACs which are too easy or some which make it too hard. The final exam mark of the group is used to decide whether the SAC needs to be scaled up or down. Does SAC marks count towards Atar? Yes, the SAC results in Unit 1 and 2 do not count to Atar, but the marks in Unit 3 and 4 do count. As mentioned earlier, it can be anything from 25% to 50%, depending on the subject. What will happen if you fail a SAC? The SAC marks do not change. But in some schools, in some schools, the teachers will use the SACs to determine if the student has attained the standard required to achieve S for the unit. Failure to complete or pass the SAC may result in an N for the unit. So it's important that you complete the work requirement, but the SAC marks will not change. What happens when you do not complete the work requirements as stated by the teacher? It's quite obvious. If you do not complete the work requirements or do not do it to a satisfactory level, this could result in an N for the unit. There are two things you'll be seeing quite often, SAC and SAT. SACs are formal assessments to determine the level of achievement. It could be in the form of assignments, tests, practical reports, posters, etc., as determined by the teachers. The SATs are tasks undertaken in technology and performance-based subjects like drama, music performance, and art. Do you do SACs in year 11 or just year 12? As mentioned earlier, there are SACs in year 11 and 12. As said before, Unit 1 and 2 SACs do not contribute to Atar, but Units 3 and 4 results do contribute to Atar. Just stressing the fact that Unit 1 and 2 results do not contribute. How many SACs are there in a year for each subject? It depends on the subjects. Some subjects have 3 and can go up to 5 or 6. Maths has, as where my expertise are, there are 3 to 4, of which one of them goes for 5 to 6 periods on different days. So one of those SACs is a lengthy one, and the others could be anything from 2 hours to 3 hours. But the teachers will tell you how many days it goes for or how long it goes for. How does VCA, which is the curriculum authority, make the setting and marking of SACs fair? VCAA moderates the SAC results. That is, it scales it up or down or leaves it same depending on the exam mark of the group. I thought I'll put three examples. Let's look at the first example. The median score for the total of the SACs is 50%, say. But the class does very well at the end of the year. The SAC results will be scaled up. It means the SAC results, the SACs were too hard given by the school. Let's look at example 2, where it's the other way around. The median score for the total for the SAC is 80%. And the class does worse at the end of the year. And I mean the class, the whole group does worse at the end of the year. And they look at the median marks. The SAC results will be scaled down. It means the SACs were too easy. And of course, example 3 is the median scores is similar, and hence the SAC marks will remain the same. One of the questions students ask me is, can your mark for the SACs go down and scale if other students' SAC marks get scaled up? No. If the cohort means the group, does poorly at the end of the year, then marks of everyone will come down, not just yours. Same with the other way around. If it's brought up, everybody will go up. There's a misconception that it is advantageous for a student to go to a high achieving school to get a higher SAC mark. And the answer to that is yes and no. In a high achieving school, the SACs will be much harder, as the teachers will need to separate a large number of bright students to rank those bright students. But in a high achieving school, even the 15th or 20th ranked person will be very, very bright. But if you look at the other way, if you do well in the average school, then you will be ranked very high in that school on easier SACs if you are good. So it really doesn't matter which whether you go to high achieving school or for an average school. Is it possible to do a unit 3 and 4 subjects in year 11 without doing 1 and 2 in year 10? Some of you already have started year 10 and felt, oh, wish I had done units 1 and 2 this year. And the answer to that question is there are some subjects which require you to do unit 1 and 2 before you do units 3 and 4. For example, chemistry, physics, maths methods, and specialists are some of those which I know of. You will not be allowed to do those subjects in those 3 and 4 subjects in year 11 unless you do 1 and 2. Best thing is to ask the students which subjects they will allow at the school. Like I repeated before, this is particularly useful for students in year 10 who have not done units 1 and 2 in year 10 this year, but wish they had done it. Thank you for listening. If you've got have any questions, please ask me or the panel on chat or email one of us. If you'd like me to email this PowerPoint to you, please request a copy via email. My official name is VJ John, although many know me as Viju. So thank you for listening, and I'll pass it on back to Ruben.
Thank you, Vijay. I'll now hand it over to Roy Uncle, who's going to talk about Atar and study score.
So Atar is Australian Tertiary Admission Rank. It is a number between 0 and 99.95 with an increment of 0.05. Atar is not a percentage. The Atar score is an estimate of the percentage of the population that a student outperformed. An Atar of 60 means you perform better than 60% student that year. Most tertiary education offers by universities are based on a student's Atar. The maximum Atar score is 99.95, and it means that you outperform 99.95% students that year, or you are in the top 0.05%. A 100 Atar is not possible because a rank of 100 means you have beaten 100% of your cohort, including yourself. So that is not possible. How is Atar calculated? Atar uses scaled up or scaled down subject scores according to the performance of students. All raw study scores get scaled up or down by VTAC. VTAC means Victorian Tertiary Admission Center, who coordinates selection for university and TAFE places. VTAC adjusts the study score by taking into account how difficult it is to achieve a certain score. For example, it is really difficult to get a study score of 30 in maths methods compared to further maths. Then maths methods would need to be scaled up against further maths. Even if you are doing a subject that traditionally gets scaled down, the adjustment will not affect you as much if you get a high study score. If you get a 50, your study score will never be scaled down. Students are ranked in the order of their aggregate. Then a percentage score is assigned to distribute the students as evenly as possible over a 100-point scale. Finally, the percentage rank is converted to Atar score. As I mentioned earlier, maximum Atar is 99.95%. Let me talk about the study score now. The study score is the score you are getting for a subject. The maximum study score for a study is 50. Each year for every study, the mean study score is set at 30. Again, please note your study score is not a percentage. What does it represent? A study score shows how well you have performed in a study at units 3 and 4 level compared to everyone else in Victoria who took that study. A study score between 23 and 37 shows that you are in the middle range of students. A study score of 30 means you have outperformed better than half of all the students. Look at this table. 50 study score, 0.3% of the cohort will get. And if you're getting a study score 45 or more, you are in the top 2% of that students who did that subject that year. 40 or more, 9%. 38 or more, you are in the top 15%. 35 or more, 26%. 30 or more, 53%. And if you are 25 or more, 78%. And if you are getting a study score of 20, you are in the top 93%. How does the study score calculated? I think Vijay has already mentioned it. To calculate the study score, the total for each student for all graded assessments in a study is ranked, and the rank is converted to a whole number score. The conversion spelled out scores so that the top mark become 50 and the average mark, that is the mean mark across the state, is 30. Study score is calculated using your statistically moderated SAC scores, which are called Graded Assessment 1, GA1 for Unit 3 SAC, and Graded Assessment 2, GA2 for Unit 4 SAC, and the end of the year exam, GA3 for each study. The weighting of each graded assessment depends on the study, but the most important assessment is always the final exam because it moderates or adjusts the value of your SAC scores. Generally, units 3 and 4 coursework, that is the work done at school, each contributes to 25% of the study score, and the written examination at the end of the year contributes to 50%. The common scale that is used to convert your SAC is called the external score, which is based on your end of the year exam and the GAT performance. GAT means General Achievement Test that every year 12 students do somewhere in June at your school. The raw score you are getting for an assessment is irrelevant to your final SAC score. So it doesn't matter if your teacher is a lenient marker or a harsh one, only the ranking matters. Basically, how you and everyone at your school performs on the exam will adjust your SAC score. The study score you get for each subject after the completion of your VCE is the raw score. However, VTAC scales up or down your raw score to calculate your Atar. If every student in a school will get an A+ on the exam, it is pretty likely that everyone will get A+ for their SAC scores as well, no matter what percentage they get for their SACs throughout the year. GA1, that is the Unit 3 SAC score, plus GA2 adjusted SAC 4 score, plus GA3, that is the exam score, will give you the study score. So basically, the study score is adjusted SAC scores plus exam score. Your exam score will never change. However, your SAC scores will change based on your exam score. Please note this point very carefully. The highest exam score at your school will be lined up with the highest SAC score. The SAC scores will be adjusted. They will increase or decrease based on the exam score. The SAC score will then be adjusted based on the exam score. The student that scored the second highest exam score will get the second highest SAC score from your school. I know it is a bit confusing. So we are more than welcome to ask me questions at the end or email me your questions, please. What is the difference between year 11 and year 12? Year 11, units 1 and 2 assessments, SACs and exams are internally assessed at school, and your school score does not contribute to your study score or your Atar. A unit pass is counted as 1 unit required out of 16 for the successful completion of your VCE. Year 12, units 3 and 4 assessments, SAC and exams are externally assessed and moderated. Your score will contribute directly to your study score and Atar. Then what is VCAL? VCAL is the acronym for Victorian Certificate of Applied Learning. VCAL now, that means it ends in 2022, is a 2-year certificate. Foundation and Intermediate VCAL in year 11 and Senior VCAL in year 12, which is designed to allow students to gain hands-on experience that primarily prepare them for gaining employment, including apprenticeships and traineeships. Minimum 1 unit from each of the following strands is compulsory, like numeracy, literacy, industry-specific, personal development skills, work-related skills. A student should pass 10 units, and around 25,000 students completed VCAL in Victoria in 2022. Now, from next year onwards, VCAL is getting a new name. It will be called VCE Vocational Major. The VCE Vocational Major is a vocational and applied learning program within VCE designed to complete it over a minimum of 2 years. The VCE Vocational Major will give students greater choice and flexibility to pursue their strengths and interests and develop the skills and capabilities needed to succeed in further education, work, and life. It prepares students to move into apprenticeships, traineeships, further education and training, and university via non-Atar pathways or directly to the workforce. The purpose of the VCE Vocational Major is to provide students with the opportunity to achieve their personal goals and aspirations in a rapidly changing world by equipping them with the skills, knowledge, values, and capabilities to be active and informed citizens, lifelong learners, and confident and creative individuals, and empowering them to make informed decisions about the next stages of their lives through real-life work experience. Then what is VET? VET stands for Vocational Education and Training. VET courses are nationally recognized qualifications, and it provides an opportunity for students to receive credits towards their VCE or VCAL. VET qualifications are approved by VCA following consultations with schools, industry, and traineeship providers. Students may include VET in their VC and VCAL. I told you earlier, Malayalam has been included as a VET subject from this year, and 18 students are currently registered for Malayalam. I think Vijay has already mentioned, it is a better idea to go one more. Some people will ask why subjects are scaled up or scaled down. Scale study score guarantee that all VCE studies are treated equally. Study scores are scaled up if the subject competition in a subject is higher to the, so the students doing that subject are not unfairly disadvantaged. Similarly, study scores are scaled down if the strength of the students' competition is lower, so the students undertaking that subject are not unfairly advantaged. In other words, your score is scaled up or scaled down to reflect how you did in comparison to your peers, not just in that subject, but across all their subjects. Scaling does not necessarily relate to the complexity of the subject, as some might think. Instead, it has to do with how competitive is the subject. Scaling adjusts for the fact that it is more difficult to obtain a high VCE study score in some studies than others. This is not because some studies are inherently harder or easier. It is because some studies attract a more competitive cohort of students. And the last thing is, you can also do unscored VCE. Unscored VCE students will not be required to complete the end of the year examinations and will not be awarded study scores for any of the studies they are completing. Students undertaking unscored VCE will not be awarded an Atar. Therefore, entry to the university is not available immediately following their year 12. Thank you for listening. That stops my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Uncle. I'm just going to quickly launch another poll. It's just asking if you're doing the IB. If you don't know what the IB is, just answer no. That you probably not doing the IB then. But since we have a lot of year 9 and 10 students, might be interesting. Or if you're going to be doing the IB in the future. I think that's all the answers we're going to get. Anirudh, if that gives you a bit of, can you see that? Yeah, I'll hand it over to Anirudh to just briefly talk about IB.
Good evening, everyone. I'm sorry for the disruption earlier. IB is not something that anyone is in this presentation at least considering. But IB is a curriculum that is catching on, and many students that I know of have chosen to get themselves enrolled in an IB school. Now, IB, when you get a diploma from IB, does not automatically qualify you for tertiary education in Australia. However, there are equivalent grades that you can get for IB. So if anyone puts themselves through IB, it does not disadvantage them in any way, shape, or form. Instead of VTAC providing them their study scores and their Atar, what happens is the Australasian Conference Tertiary Admission Center is what gives them the study score. In 2023, I'm told that it is going to be a much more refined process. I don't know exactly what algorithm they use to convert their IB scores to a VTAC scores, but what I know is students graduating from IB are not disadvantaged in any way. Just because they're choosing that particular curriculum. Now, IB, as with Steiner, as Roya Chan earlier said, there are non-score VCE pathways. IB does offer a admissions to university pathway. However, if it's a standard curriculum, then it does not offer that pathway. But that's just me. If you just take away the fact that IB does offer equivalent ranking to Atar, and that allows tertiary admissions to students who are putting themselves through IB and getting an IB diploma, and that'll be all. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I'm going to bring all our panelists back. So Vijay, Roy Uncle, Anirudh, and Jesse Chachi. We're just going to do a brief Q&A. Feel free to put your hand up or ask your question in the chat. but I'm assuming you'll have a lot of questions, so we're more than happy to answer them. Or no questions. Oh,
Oh, I had one question, Ruben. I'm
Yeah,
sorry, I have. I actually heard that you can take more than one subject, like complete more than one subject in year 11. Is that right? Like I know Vijay uncle talked about completing a year 12 subject in year 11. But I've heard that, you know, students take complete more than that so that they have only 4 subjects to do in year 12. What are your thoughts on that? Is it too stressful, or is it an advantage, or is it purely based on the child's abilities?
I think Vijay is ready to answer that.
So yeah, I know not many schools allow that. I know Macrob does. So, and the advantage is that in year 12, they only do 4 subjects because they've already done 2 in year. So that gives them virtually 10 periods off to prepare. That I know a few people, I know a student who has done that before, 2 subjects in year 11 and then 4 subjects in year 12. And that gave her more time.
And also because you can do the 3-4 subject again in year 12, it doesn't disadvantage you in any way. So if you do 2-3-4 subjects in year 11, you can choose to do one of them again in year 12 with no disadvantage to your scores.
But essentially
there's no penalties. So you're not going to be penalized for doing the PE.
Okay, sorry, Auntie. All of the advantages and disadvantages that Vijay mentioned earlier just amplified in terms of that that question. Does that answer your question, Surya?
Yeah, thank you.
Anyone else have any questions? This one might be a bit of a niche question. What is taught in vet laboratory skills? Any of our panelists know the answer to that? I'm going to take that as a no. More details would be, where would we find more details about vet subjects? Do any of the teachers know the answer to that?
The website. Go to the VCA website. That'll be the best place to look because I believe they have short units that they do. Yeah, I can't really speak much for that, but that'll be the best place to go. Have a look in the VCA website.
Yeah. We've got another question here. If you do a VC,
I'll put the link for it. So the lab skills, it is science-based. You can get credit for it in VCE. So it's a vet subject. You can get credit for it. It is based on science lab work pretty much. So looking at, you know, microscopes, aseptic technique, those kinds of things. So it is pretty much lab tech work. But I'll put the link in the chat. I'll send it to you.
Thank you so much. I've got another question. If you do a VC subject in year 10, do you still have to do SACs? The answer is yes. So if you're doing a unit 1-2, there'll be the year 11 or the unit 1-2 SACs, and in year 12 or the unit 3-4 SACs that you'll be doing in year 11, you still have to do the SACs. How do we apply for interstate unis? Do any of our panelists know the answer to that? You're on.
Yeah.
Oh.
My son applied in Interstate, and then we virtually had to fill up the VTAC for South Australia, New South Wales, and Western Australia.
Yeah.
So
I think
they're separate. Yeah.
Each state has their own version of VTAC. For example, Queensland's called QTAC, so you'd have to apply the same way you apply in the VTAC. Roy, uncle?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Does anyone else have any questions? Okay, wait. Oh, can we take vet subjects along with VCE?
Yes, definitely. Yeah, vet subjects will contribute either to VCAL or VCE.
Yeah. Is the lowest selection rank on the Monash website the minimum ATAR for the particular course? Just give me 2 seconds. I was having a look at this before. So the on the VTAC website, for example, for Monash, the lowest ATAR was the lowest ATAR they provided, and some unis have a guarantee or what we call special considerations. So different unis call it different things. So, for example, at Monash for accounting, with Jesse Chechi was showing before, the lowest ATAR that was provided before any special considerations were made was 67.4. But the Monash guarantee, which was the middle one, that is the Monash guarantee is what Monash calls their special consideration. So if you're in a low socioeconomic, or if you're in a school that's on a particular list, etc., there are different considerations that apply to that. So that score is 75. So different unis have different names, but lowest ATAR is the ATAR, the flat ATAR before any considerations. And then, for example, with Monash Uni, the Monash guarantee is after special considerations were made if you are eligible for the guarantee program, and the selection rank is after any special considerations are put on as well. Roy, uncle?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're right.
And different unis call it different things. So just click on the info page because they do explain it. How do we apply for international unis?
I don't know much about that. Those who are doing VCE applying to international. I don't know. Any idea, Vijay? What?
You're on mute, Vijay.
I
That is what
think you have to contact the university overseas, and they will have their own requirements. I think you have to ring the universities, I think.
But the IB, if you do IB, that is internationally recognized.
Yeah,
IB
that's
score,
right. Yeah.
Internationally recognized.
So
This is for Atar, is for Victoria.
Yeah. If you're planning to, if you really want to do a course overseas, then the IB is more recognized than the VCE.
Yeah, thank you. Any other questions? I'll wait a few seconds just in case anyone does have any questions. Oh, and then that wasn't a question, that was there. Oh, okay, perfect. That is a good segue into what I was literally just opening now. So there are the contact details. Can we see those? Can you see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So those are the contact details for everyone. So if you want to take a screenshot of that, so these are everyone who spoke today. And you can more than welcome to contact any of us, and we're more than happy to try and answer your questions. If you do have any questions, you can also always don't forget about your careers counselors and coordinators at school, or your teachers. They're also happy to help out. Was there anything any of our panelists would like to add before we wrap up?
Just that, you can contact us through email or message, or and ringing during school time is going to be difficult because in fact all four of us are teachers, present teachers. But if messaging would be the best way, if you wanted it urgently replied, or email, we'll be looking at both of them.
Anything else? Any of the other speakers or anyone else wanted to add before we wrap up? Okay, beautiful. So just some final things from me. As a community, as an Indian Orthodox community, we all want everyone to succeed, and everyone wants everyone else to do their best. So these are not the only teachers that are in our community. We have a lot more teachers that are in our Indian Orthodox community and a wider Indian community, Mallu community, who are happy to answer your questions or happy to help you. And that's not limited to teachers as well. Your achachans and chechis at your churches, or like people outside of church, are also there to answer your questions. We have lived through the same experiences that you've gone through, or the same processes that you've gone through, and we are more than happy to answer your questions. I know that we do this at the Cathedral Pali, but I don't know if you do this at SkyArc. But at the end of the year, when it comes to exam time, we get a list of all the people who are doing the exams, and we do kind of like have prayer lists. So we pray for all those people during exams. That is just an attestation to how the community is behind you to support you as you get through your high school. I have so many resources and things, practice exams, practice sacks, notes and everything that I'm happy to share. Just have to reach out, and when all of your high schools, all of your older achachins and churches will have stuff they use, so they're more than happy to help. Just before we close off, I just want to, we've got some more. Oh, no. I just want to ask Sam Achin to do a closing prayer.
Can you hear?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep. So let's pray. പിതാവിനും പുത്രനും പരിശുദ്ധരൂഹായിക്കും സ്തുതി ആദ്യം മുതലിലേക്കും തന്നെ ആമേൻ. മഹാകാരുണ്യവാനായിരിക്കുന്ന സ്വർഗീയ പിതാവാം ദൈവമേ, അനുഗ്രഹീത ദിവസത്തിന്റെ സന്ധ്യയ്ക്കായിട്ട് അങ്ങേക്ക് സ്തുതിയും സ്തോത്രം സമർപ്പിക്കുന്നു. പ്രത്യേകാൽ ഒത്തൊരുമിച്ച് നിന്റെ സന്നിധിയിലായിരിക്കാൻ തക്കവണ്ണം തന്ന കൃപകൾക്കായിട്ട് സ്തുതിയും സ്തോത്രവും. പ്രത്യേകാൽ അടിയങ്ങളുടെ പൈതങ്ങളുടെ ഭാവി ജീവിതത്തെ പറ്റിയുള്ള ആലോചനകൾ പങ്കുവെക്കുവാൻ തക്കവണ്ണം, പ്രത്യേകിച്ച് അവരുടെ ഭാവി ജീവിതം ശോഭനമാക്കുന്നതിന് വേണ്ടുന്ന നിർദ്ദേശങ്ങൾ ലഭിക്കത്തക്കവണ്ണം ഒരു ക്ലാസ് ക്രമീകരിക്കാൻ തക്കവണ്ണം ഓടുന്നൊരിക്കൽ കൃപകൾക്കായിട്ട് സ്തുതിയും സ്തോത്രം സമർപ്പിക്കുന്നു. പ്രത്യേകിച്ച് ഇതിന് നേതൃത്വം നൽകിയ എല്ലാ പ്രിയപ്പെട്ടവരെ അവിടുത്തെ കരങ്ങളിലേക്ക് സമർപ്പിച്ച് പ്രാർത്ഥിക്കുന്നു. ക്ലാസ്സുകൾക്ക് നേതൃത്വം നൽകിയവരെ സമർപ്പിക്കുന്നു. കർത്താവേ, ഇവരുടെ എല്ലാം ഭാവി ജീവിതം അനുഗ്രഹമായി തീരുവാൻ തക്കവണ്ണം സഹായിക്കണമേ. ഏർപ്പെടുന്ന മേഖലകൾ അനുഗ്രഹത്തിൻ്റെതാക്കിയവരും ഒരുക്കുമാറാകണമേ എന്ന് പ്രാർത്ഥിക്കുന്നു. പ്രത്യേകാൽ ഇതിൽ സംബന്ധിച്ച മാതാപിതാക്കൾക്ക് തങ്ങളുടെ മക്കളെ നേരായ വഴിയിൽ നടത്തുവാൻ തക്കവണ്ണമുള്ള ഒരു മാർഗനിർദ്ദേശമായി ഇത് സ്വീകരിക്കാൻ തക്കവണ്ണം അവരെ ഇവിടെ നിന്ന് സഹായിക്കുമാറാകണമേ. പങ്കെടുത്ത കുഞ്ഞുങ്ങൾക്ക് ഇത് അനുഗ്രഹപ്രദമായി അവരുടെ ഭാവിക്ക് ഉതകുന്ന രീതിയിലായി തീരുവാൻ തക്കവണ്ണം അവിടെ നിന്ന് ഒരുക്കുമാറാകണമേ എന്നും പ്രാർത്ഥിക്കുന്നു. പ്രത്യേകിച്ച് ഇതിൽ ചർച്ച ചെയ്തിട്ടുള്ള കാര്യങ്ങളെല്ലാം തന്നെയും ദൈവനാമമഹത്വത്തിനായിട്ട് പ്രവർത്തിപ്പാൻ തക്കവണ്ണം, അതനുസരിച്ച് അവരുടെ ഭാവി ജീവിതത്തെ ക്രമീകരിക്കാൻ തക്കവണ്ണം ദൈവതമ്പുരാനെ അവരെ സഹായിക്കുമാറാകണമേ എന്ന് വീണ്ടും അങ്ങയുടെ സന്നിധിയിലേക്ക് ഞങ്ങൾ പ്രാർത്ഥന കഴിക്കുന്നു. ദൈവതമ്പുരാനെ, അടിയങ്ങളുടെ ദൂരം ചാരയമായിരിക്കുന്ന പ്രിയപ്പെട്ടവരെല്ലാം കരങ്ങളിലേക്ക് സമർപ്പിച്ച് പ്രാർത്ഥിക്കുന്നു. പ്രിയദാസരൊക്കെ ആയിരിക്കുന്ന സ്ഥലങ്ങളിലും സാഹചര്യങ്ങളിലും നിന്റെ കൃപയിൽ പരിപാലിക്കണമേ, വഴി നടത്തുമാറാകണമേ. അടിയങ്ങളെ വാങ്ങിപ്പോരുന്ന ദാസര അബ്രഹാമി ഭവനങ്ങളിൽ ഇമ്പങ്ങളുടെ പരിശോധിക്കാൻ സംഗതിയാക്കി തീർക്കുമാറാകണമേ എന്നും പ്രാർത്ഥിക്കുന്നു. പ്രത്യേകിച്ച് ഇത് കണ്ടക്ട് ചെയ്യാൻ തക്കവണ്ണം നേതൃത്വം നൽകിയ എല്ലാ പ്രിയപ്പെട്ടവരെയും പ്രസ്ഥാനാംഗങ്ങളെയും അവിടുത്തെ കരങ്ങളിലേക്ക് സമർപ്പിക്കുന്നു. പ്രത്യേകിച്ച് ഇടവകകളെയും കർത്താവെ, അതിലെ ഇടവകങ്ങളെ ഒക്കെ കരങ്ങളിലേക്ക് സമർപ്പിക്കുന്നു. ഒത്തൊരുമിച്ച് ഈ കൂട്ടായ്മ കാലം നിലനിർത്തുവാൻ തക്കവണ്ണോടൊന്ന് സഹായിക്കുമാറാകണമേ എന്ന് പ്രാർത്ഥിക്കുന്നു. അടിയങ്ങളുടെ ബലഹീനതകളും തെറ്റുകുറ്റങ്ങളും നിറഞ്ഞിരിക്കുന്ന പ്രാർത്ഥന യാചന അവിടുത്തെ ഉന്നത സിംഹാസനത്തിന് മുമ്പാകെ കേൾക്കപ്പെടുന്ന അംഗീകരിക്കപ്പെടുന്ന ആക്കി തീർക്കുമാറാകണമേ. ആയത് ഞങ്ങൾ നിനക്കും നിന്റെ ഏകജാതനായ പുത്രനും പരിശുദ്ധരുമായിരിക്കും സ്തുതിയും സ്തോത്രം സമർപ്പിക്കാനായിട്ട് തന്നെ ആമേൻ. പറക്കുമ്പോൾ പിതാവാം ദൈവത്തിന്റെ സ്നേഹവും ഏകജാതനായ പുത്രന്റെ കൃപയും പരിശുദ്ധരുമായിട്ട് സംബന്ധവും ആവാസവും അടിയങ്ങൾ ഓർത്ത പ്രാർത്ഥിച്ച കാര്യങ്ങളുടെ മേലും, പ്രത്യേകിച്ച് ഈ ക്ലാസ്സിൽ വന്ന് സംബന്ധിച്ച എല്ലാവരുടെ മേലും, ഇതിന് നേതൃത്വം നൽകിയവരുടെ മേലും, അടിയങ്ങളുടെ പൈതങ്ങളുടെ ഭാവി ജീവിത ക്രമീകരണങ്ങളുടെ മേലും, എല്ലാ നല്ല ആവശ്യങ്ങളുടെ മേൽ, നല്ല യാചനകളുടെ മേലും ഇപ്പോഴെപ്പോഴും നിന്നേക്കൊണ്ടായിരിക്കുമാറാകണമേ. ആമേൻ.
Thank you, Acha. And just a reminder, we will have a recording available for you in the coming days if you haven't missed anything. Enjoy the rest of your night. Thank you everyone for coming, and thank you to our speakers for all their input. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a good night.